This is absurd. This trip was funded by points that I earned from paid ads that helped me get clients. So the more I grow my business, the more I get to travel. I actually call that the freedom flywheel. The more you grow your business, the more points you get. The more points you get, the more trips you can take. The more trips you can take. Guess what? You come back and you want to grow your business more. So now you're thinking, how do I grow my business in a way that's going to scale it and spend more money, but create more freedom for me to take more trips and have a better life and a better business?
Welcome back to another episode of The Living Vision Show. I've got something really special for you today. If you are the traveler, if you're the adventurer, or you have a thirst for adventure, I've got a very special guest. His name is Eli Facenda. He is known as the Travel Guy for a reason. He's the founder of Freedom Travel Systems, where he's helped thousands of entrepreneurs, just like you and me, turn business expenses into upgraded travel experiences and $50,000 dream trips, almost entirely on points. We're going to have a conversation, you and I, and invite Eli in. And what I want you to pay attention to is why travel might be the unlock that's going to help you be more creative, more connected, and more excited about growing your business, running your business, and leading your team. Travel for me has always been one of those funny words. People say, I love the travel. I love the travel. And I would challenge you. I bet you don't love the travel. Unless you really like sitting on a plane, I really doubt that you love to travel. What you probably love is something on the other side of it. And knowing this travel credit card point game, I sold hundreds of courses to people. I helped several business owners build out their portfolio of points. I know a little bit to be dangerous, but more importantly, what I know is that there's an expert that knows even more, who can help us understand why travel is so important and make sure that you ask the right questions about your travel future, credit cards, and how to use points. Join me in welcoming Eli to the show. Here we go. Eli, you're in the studio. Man, I so appreciate you being here. I want to kick this conversation off. If we're going to talk about travel hacking and points and getting after it with our business and utility related there, I think we should start with the end in mind. What's been maybe one of your best travel experiences through this idea of traveling with points?
I'm going to give you two different experiences that were both absurd, and not because of just like the value I got off the points, but actually just the insanity level of the memories that were created through the experience. So the first one, I host a big annual entrepreneur ski trip. So for the last 5 years, I've brought a group of anywhere from 35 to 55 people to places like Chamonix, France, Japan, Banff, Canada, Park City, Utah. This year, we're going to the Austrian Alps. And a couple of years ago, we were heading over there and we were going to Chamonix in France. And I was looking at different flight options. And I knew, okay, there's a lot of guys that are coming that through me know about the points game. And I was like, I'd love to make this experience even more unforgettable. Like, it's part of what I love to do when I create experiences is like, how memorable can we make it? And I found out that on a certain date, there was over 25 seats available of business class, we call award space on Emirates, to fly on the A380 aircraft, which has the in-flight bar. So flash forward a couple months, there's 23 guys that are basically having a cocktail party in the sky on the way between New York to Milan, Italy. We were flying over into Milan to then go to Chamonix, and we all booked it on points. We saved probably over like $100 and something thousand collectively on that flight. Basically robbed Emirates, and then we drank them dry of champagne in the in-flight bar. So that was one of the biggest ones. And then the second one I'll share was actually similar, is also on Emirates, ironically, which was when I went to propose to my fiance last year in Europe. And I had this dream of like just creating an incredible experience for our engagement and for the proposal. And so we also flew Emirates. We did first class where we got to take a shower on the way over. They have an in-flight shower for first class there. And that was just like a crazy way to kick off the trip. I totally played this game of like, brought out all these elements of surprise and told her we were going one place and changed the plan and made the whole thing, different than what she thought. She didn't even know we were flying on that aircraft on the way over where we were going to get the shower. So like all these surprises are woven in and made it really, really fun and memorable. So those were two really epic ones, and points were kind of the unlock that made them possible for me.
My affinity for points is high. I don't know that everyone feels the same way because there's like these intricate games that you can play, right? And from the outside, there's like the consumer level game where you get a couple cards, you stack a couple bonuses. I mean, you can make several grand a year just in the bonuses.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're a business owner, part of the argument that I hear often is, I'm busy. I don't have time to play the quote unquote points game.
Yep.
Can you dispel some of that for the business owner that's moving a lot of money around? I think that being intentional with a couple cards can really unlock a lot. But what
Mhm.
would you say to someone that is hesitant to invest a lot of time into this?
Yeah. No, I think it's honestly the right question to start with, because answering this correctly will indicate what you want to spend your time doing, and that's our most valuable resource as business owners. So there's a couple different paths. There's a path of doing nothing, which basically, it saves you time, but it means you're leaving tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table every year of the easiest free money you can get, because all we're talking about doing is changing a couple pieces of plastic that you spend the money on. You're already spending the money. So to me, that's a little silly, because it's like, with a little bit of effort, you can get a lot of value back. And so that's path one, is basically just punt on the whole thing. And most people are doing that, and it's not optimal. Path two is to kind of do it like the lazy way, which is, I would say, probably like, out of the thousands of business owners that I've consulted and talked to, this is probably like 50, 60%. They have the Amex Platinum, and they redeem points through Amex Travel. They have the Chase Sapphire card. They just redeem points direct with you there. And that's better than doing nothing. It's not quite what I would call like an 80-20, but it's like, this is kind of like the lazy way, where I'm getting a little bit of value, getting a few trips here and there, not really maximizing it, but like not spending a lot of time. Then there's kind of the third path, which is to go towards like actually getting max value out of this, which can be insane of what it can unlock. I mean, I'm hundreds of thousands of dollars for a lot of business owners every year worth of travel. The problem with that is, as you said, it can be very complex. And unless you're just an enthusiast, the opportunity cost of that time is too high. So that's actually why we started our business, and why there are some other people out there doing this, is because we have the expertise that saves the time. But if you didn't want to hire someone, then I would suggest, if you are going to go towards the path, like, I want to get more value, what you want to think about is, what are the 80-20s? What are the highest? And we could talk about that today, but like, what are the high leverage moves, if you're going to DIY this and not hire a team, that you should be making to make sure that you're not missing on a huge, easy opportunity, but you're also not now dipping into the territory where you're spending too much time. So there's kind of a little thin window there, where it's like the right path of, I'm going to do this on my own, I'm going to get the 80-20, and that's your option. Or you'd hire someone like us or other people out there that can just do it for you and give you like a concierge service and make it easy. So those are kind of the paths.
Well, I'm always a big fan of done for you. I think most people listening are as well. Know what, if you're listening, you can't choose option one. You can't do nothing. There's so much about this that's important. Before we dig in any more tactics, I think, Eli, you and I can really help anyone listening with why this matters. So there's the game that's happening where we're spending money, we're paying our team, vendors, we're paying for supplies, we're running our company, and we're able to put those expenses on a credit card or various credit cards to start using points. But in a way, we can get lost playing that game too, where we're just stacking up points. One of my close friends had 54 million points. At one point, I think he had the most points in the world. And I'm like, wait a minute, hold on, man. What's the end game here? What's the point of having this many points? And I also run into business owners who are stacking and like saving them.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this enigma that I believe runs really loud in the entrepreneur community, where we set these goals and we set aside everything else that we care about in pursuit of those goals. And I think you and I have a different lens on why using points, why travel, why things like a concierge service that can do it for you really matters. And it isn't about the points. What's this all about for you? What's the core of this for you?
Yeah. Well, let me tell you a little story on this one, because it's really relevant. And we met like a little over a month ago, and this happened since then, which is it's unfortunate. But I got a text a few weeks back, actually a little over a month ago, from a friend that I had from my previous company. Now, my previous company, I've been in the travel industry for over 12 years. And in the last company, we're taking youth sports teams and families on international tours. So like baseball teams to Italy or Japan. We were taking ice hockey teams to Sweden. And this guy who I'm referencing, he was an ice hockey coach that had led 5 or 6 different trips with us. So him and I had taken hundreds of people across the globe before on these in-person travel experiences. So we were very aligned on values, clearly, like, creating epic memories, having peak experiences, all that stuff. But I got a text from his wife a few weeks ago, and it was pretty shocking. And she basically said, because I hadn't talked to this guy in a few years because I haven't been involved with the company. She's like, hey, I regret to inform you that my friend, I'm not going to use his name, just passed away from skin cancer. Got it in January. This is September. So 9 months basically gone. I had no idea. But what hit me is she was like, hey, I'm letting you know, here's his obituary, all that. But she said, can I book a call with you? Because I need to figure out what to do with his 2.5 million credit card points that we never used. And I was like, oh my God, what a punch in the gut. And I talked to him tons of times, and he's like, yeah, I'm going to save these up for like the big trip someday with the family. Right. And I don't want to disparage him by any means, because he's an amazing guy. Left his family in a beautiful position in a lot of ways. Obviously left earlier than we would have liked, but it's part of the plan, depending on your religious or spiritual views. But regardless, the point is I looked at that and I was like, holy shit, here I am helping her transfer points out of Amex and Chase and United and Marriott of what she's going to do with these accounts before the banks just claw them back. And I'm thinking, these are missed memories for his son, for his wife, that now that he's gone, like, they don't get to have those back. And so to me, that's what it's about. That's like the heavier level, right? That's like don't wait. Don't just sit on millions of points. And I mean, we all hear those stories, and sometimes, it has to be someone close to you to kind of wake you up. But I think that this is ultimately about points. To me, it's a permission slip to do the things that you already deeply want to do in your life, but to do it in a way where there's no guilt of how much it costs. There's no financial trade-off. There's no downside. You get to have the upside and do it in a way that it feels really good logically too, right? Like, we make decisions on emotion and justify with logic, right? Well, you want the trip to Italy with the family. If you're a business owner, probably you want to take your kids there, or your wife or your husband or whoever. But sometimes you start to, calculate it all up and do business class flights and 5-star hotels. You're like, Jesus, $60,000. Rather put that in the kids' college fund. I'd rather remodel our house. I'd rather invest in a new team member. With points, it's a permission slip. It allows you to have that experience, that trip, and reinvest the savings into your growth, into your investments, or maybe even back into the trip and experience itself, where it's like, okay, great, we got amazing this. Now we're going to upgrade our hotels even more, or we're going to invest into different tours and experiences. It depends on, how much you value that savings. But that's, to me, what this is about. And that's something I call experiential wealth, which is living a life that's rich in meaningful experiences to you with the people you love, that create memories that give you that, like, that satisfaction that you can look back on. These are assets that, like, when you look back on peak memories in your life, that floods you with positive emotion anytime, anywhere you want it to for the rest of your life. So the more you stack these, the more you have wealth and experiences, which I think is like the most intangible, most valuable form of wealth. So that's my deeper purpose, and why is a little long, but that's truly it for me.
Man, so I love the book ending, right? We have live a good life, and we don't know our end goal or our end destination. So use them wisely. I think back to when I was really playing the points game aggressively, way before I even had a business to move expenses through.
Yeah.
And I could go away for a weekend and it would cost me $100 because the flight and the hotel were paid for, right? It was $11 if you use points to get down to Miami from Maryland. I'd hang there for, 2 nights and then go home. And all I was paying for was like lunch and dinners. At the time, I used that a lot for business, right? It became the vehicle to go shake an investor's hand or, open up some doors. But now I find that creating the experiences, so I love that word, experiential wealth, is the only way to keep me creative, to keep me in high energy. And as a guy running a company, we have to be thinking about self-care very differently. I think that business owners really need to be intentional about, how do I stay creative? How do I stay zoomed out and keep perspective? How do I make sure that I'm coming in with some clean ideas and really a clean way of leading? Yeah. And to me, travel's always been that. Like, it's always been that. And now you can do it so much easier. The points game can feel complicated, but there's people like you that can make it simple. And anyone that's listening really should invest the time into getting travel underway, whether it's like travel down the street or travel across the country. The door's open. What do you say to the guy that's like, you know what? I'm too busy. I don't have the time right now. It's not a good time. It's not a good season. What do you say to that guy?
Yeah, I think busy is more of a state of mind than it is a circumstantial thing. Because everyone's busy. Like, you think like Richard Branson lives on a private island. He's got 300 companies. He's not busy. He found a way to do so it's like, it's an excuse. And I get it. I feel it too. But it's more of a psychological loop and pattern that I think, honestly, there's a really cool book called The Big Leap, if you've read that, by Gay Hendricks. And he talks about upper limits, right? Where it's like, essentially we all have this thermostat on how much we allow ourselves to simultaneously feel success, love, and creative expression at the same time. And so it's like if you're a business owner who's hustling and grinding, well, maybe you're set up where it's like, I can't have success and take an awesome vacation and feel peaceful internally too. I have to feel kind of like this internal tension while I'm building. And I think this is why, I love getting into this stuff, because I talk to tons of business owners, 10 million credit card points, taking home over 7 figures a year profit, or multiple 7 figures, and they can't take a week off. They can't go spend a month like traveling through Africa with their wife, who's always want to do that, and take their kids on an adventure. It's like, what is that? What is that really about? I don't think it's really about the employees need you that bad. I think it's easy for our egos to get wrapped up in how important we can feel. But really, I think it comes down just from fear. Like it is, I will be sincere with you. The last time I took the first time in the last few years that I took a big chunk of period of time off, it scared the living shit out of me. I was terrified. All these stories kept coming up around like, if I take time away and something goes wrong, I'm a bad leader. If I take time away, like everything's going to break and crumble and it's going to be too stressful, I might as well just not go. All of those stories are what come up, but that's the kind of, when I was saying upper limits, these are the things that prevent us from actually having the joy while we build the business, which is, for most of us, that's probably why we built it in the first place. You didn't build it so you could grind your life away. You built it so you could have meaningful success and something that you probably care about, that you can contribute to the world, and have an extraordinary personal quality of life as well. So I like the word, actually, I was recently playing with this because I hate the word lifestyle business, because a lot of people, like, to me, it has this kind of, in the entrepreneurial world, it kind of creates this connotation that like what you're doing is like cute and like nice and not like,
man.
What's that?
A lot of shame in that. People project that out.
Right. They're like, oh, your lifestyle business. Like, that's a cool lifestyle business. That's nice. That's kind of how it is. I'm like, I think it's absurd, because I'm like, my business should fit into my life, but this isn't like a self-serving thing for me to just have a nice car. Right. Like, that's how I feel about this. So I call it a life force business. I'm like, I want a life and a business that give me energy, that give me passion, give me enthusiasm, give me a bigger mission in the world. And so that's kind of how I frame it. But I'm like, a part of having life force is having the space to pause, having the space to step away. And I think, to your point, what people will realize when they actually do take more vacations, and not just go somewhere to just like work from a beach, like that's what I was doing for years, but to actually take 10 days, I dare you to not have your laptop or your Slack open on your phone. Like, take 10 days like that, see how creative you feel, see how much passion and turn on you have when you come back to your business, see how like you're going to want to run through a freaking wall when you get back after 10 days actually being away. But so few of us give ourselves permission to actually have that. So we miss on the juice and the gift of that opportunity too. So that's why I think vacations they're not just a good idea. I think they're actually potentially the most powerful tool that we have as entrepreneurs in our business to grow, is to create that space and get that energy back.
I'm aligned with you there. The going away, the act of travel, to me, is a strategic move as a leader.
Yeah.
To zoom back out. And it's not a selfish misrepresentation of what matters. It is the best thing you can do for your team at times as well.
Yep.
I think to some of the trips that I've taken and the fears and the stories that came up. And I actually think a big shift in business happens when the leader goes away for long enough to sit in the quiet away from the business. What I feel is unimportant, insignificant.
Mm-hmm.
I feel maybe disconnected. I feel like I'm not valued. I feel afraid that nobody needs me. And in that is sort of a liberty when you come back to say, oh, I'm approaching business differently. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
building this thing as a structure to inflate my ego. I'm actually building it as a structure to maintain impact, influence, teams, and make a good lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll say it till I'm blue in my face. The only reason I think business owners build a business is for a better lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And yet we constantly defer, right? I'll come back to it later. I can travel when I'm blank, blank, blank. And the biggest catalyst for me has been my son, to be able to build something I can do with him and have a good lifestyle where we can go. Do you think that, well, let me ask it this way. If a business owner says, I can do it later, and they hear that there are these moments where mortality looks us square in the face, and they're like, okay, I need to book a trip now. One of the blocks is, I can't do it today. But I'm a believer that you can book it today, but we need something to look forward to. I think Matthew McConaughey said that was the secret to happiness, was having something to look forward to. How do you get someone to take the action if they're not clear on when that trip could be? How do you get them to forecast out and plan something?
Yeah. Well, I think that it comes down from, for me, what I really realized, I had a business coach who taught me this, and he taught me about Parkinson's law and using things as forcing functions. And so just for anyone like listening, what does that actually mean? Well, it means you want to use tight constraints to force you. They call it like pathways thinking. Like if you're familiar with Ben Hardy's work and Dan Sullivan, 10X is easier than 2X. When you have tight constraints on your focus, it limits the number of options that you have, and it forces you to think differently. And so when you use vacations actually as a forcing function, where it's like, hey, I'm taking the vacation. But this comes down to self-care. You're prioritizing the most important asset in your business, yourself and your own energy first. And when you prioritize that and you say, I'm taking a week off, I'm going to the Greek islands for a week in June, I'm not taking work with me, then all of a sudden, you know now, okay, I have a 3-month sprint until I can get the business into a spot where I can take a week off. Now, what is that going to reveal for you? Number one, things will probably break in some sense, but that's normal. It's business. The business is going to reveal to you where it needs the next fix, the next tune-up. And if you're constantly throwing Band-Aids on things, you won't see that. So that's the first thing. Secondly, if you believe in personal growth, it's going to give you the opportunity to realize maybe you aren't as important as you think you are. Like you're getting validation from the business and, getting things that aren't necessarily healthy relationships to the business out of it. So you might get some of that. But thirdly, it's going to force you to focus your efforts into a more confined period. And so one quick example of this, when I took that first trip for me off in a couple of years, it was last August in South America. I was in Argentina. And I had that conversation about forcing functions and Parkinson's law with my mentor, which basically, by the way, Parkinson's law in short is work will expand to fit the amount that we allow it to. So if we say something's going to take 2 weeks, it'll take 2 weeks. If you say you need to get done tomorrow, you'll find a way. So he was like, hey, I'm mandating you take a vacation off, probably similar to what you do with some of your clients, right? Like you need a trip. And I was like, okay, cool. You know what? I realized I had been doing a ton of travel, but not a lot of disconnected, like from work travel. So I was like, you're right. Let me take 10 days off. So I go into it. And one of the things that came up was right before I was about to go away, we had a big project that came up and I was really excited about it because I knew it could really help the business. And I was like, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to kick off the project. I'll set a call with my team member on Tuesday. She'll take a look. And then by Friday, we'll meet again. And then by the next Friday, we'll probably have this thing started. 2 weeks with a few meetings. And I was like, oh shit, I'm taking 10 days off. I'm not going to be online at all. I can't let this project wait. So now my brain had to find other ways to get the same outcome with me not as involved. So I was like, all right, I'm creating a 1-page doc, a Google Doc. I'm going to create a Loom video that tells her to connect with him and him to connect with her. They're going to need to meet on this topic and create a decision on their own based on these values by the time I get back. And they're going to kick it off before I'm even back. I came back, the project kicked off, things went really smoothly. And I was like, holy crap, I only found that level of resourcefulness because I had to. I had to force that out of it. And what's ironic about this, what's a more valuable business? One that doesn't require the founder or one that does? So it's like the vacations will actually force you to create the business that gives you more valuation if you are going to sell it, but also makes it run without you long-term as well. So like you have to kind of use them as a forcing function. And I think what that is the big unlock when you understand that mentally, that gives you not just the permission slip on the point side, but like, oh yeah, this is actually a smart thing to do for the business. And so that's my philosophy on it, is like that mindset shift will unlock everything for people.
If you were a doctor, it sounds like you're prescribing vacations.
I am prescribing vacations.
I think this is a great tactic.
I got to tell you, look, I can't tell you for sure that going to a vineyard outside of Florence and spending a few nights with some people that you love, exploring amazing cities is going to make your life better. But I can tell you for sure it won't make your life worse. I can tell you for sure that it's not going to make your life worse.
Yeah. What is the worst that could happen? This adventure idea to me is a big part of what makes entrepreneurs tick. I actually think the forcing function is a really good one. And then the lag effect beyond it is, hey, make this part of your process, like build it into your system.
And no, how many people do you know that have come back from a vacation and were like, I wish I didn't do that?
I know. It really doesn't make any sense that we don't. The World Cup is coming up next year.
Yeah.
I'm stoked about it, right? I want to go see everything. And it's a great forcing function for a lot of business leaders who want to make this a part of the June and July that we have here in North America. And I'm fascinated at how many people are like, yeah, I can't do that. And I don't know. I've never thought that way. My world has always been, how does travel and my business become one? And how do I make these a part of the way I run the business? Right. We run the company where I'd say 80% of it is remote. When we have in-person activities, people are traveling in or we're traveling out. And I've just never wanted a company that was 60 cubicles with a team where every day we huddle up and like bitch about the weather over the water cooler, right? I've always imagined something different.
Yeah.
But it does intersect with many people's visions of how they imagine leading or what it means to lead. And part of the rub is control. Part of what I see in business leaders is that control becomes the mechanism for their life. I control as much as I can, as often as I can, with who I can. And that's what makes me a quote unquote leader.
Yep.
Travel certainly opens up the door to, I don't have control anymore. This experience where you have to surrender a little bit, whether it's a delayed flight or you don't know the language or you need help, you get lost. So that can be good there. I also think that getting a concierge involved can elicit the same kind of emotional response. I had a concierge involved in my trip out to Portugal. I connected you with him. And part of that experience for me was, hey, I don't know that I want to let go of this. Like, I like to have my liberties when I'm away. And I like to pick my flight and I like to pick where I'm having dinner and pick. And it occurred to me that a lot of these hesitations to delegate came from this need for me to have control, for me to know my destination, know my schedule, know my plan. And when I finally let go and said, hey, there's a group of people, like a whole team that is setting up an amazing trip for me and I don't have to do anything, it created this whole narrative in my head about who I was as a traveler. Like I'd outgrown the coolness of, being ground level, or I really like to travel like I'm in the culture, not like I'm an American visiting. So I messed it up. What do you think business owners struggle with in letting go of that control piece when they're working with you?
Man, it's huge. It's so big because, when we do it, we do a lot. When people are like, wait, you're going to help me find flights. Some people freak out about that because, but I'm like, yeah, they're going to be way better than the ones that you were picking. So
I've got to be an E. I've got to be an E.
Yeah, exactly. So no, I get it though. I mean, it's something because the stakes are pretty high for there to be a big mistake for two reasons. Like one, there's like a comfort level and convenience needs. Like, you get, one mistake on a flight where you show up and you're in economy and you think you're supposed to fly first class. Like if that happens, like, and you're used to flying, like that's really, especially for overseas, you're like, that sucks. So there's big stakes in terms of like the cost of that. The other thing is basically, I think kind of like what you were talking about, which is essentially if you want to be involved with like being active in the process and you're letting go of control, it just feels like if you're someone who values travel, then maybe you feel a little bit like you're just kind of like insignificant almost. Like you're not involved in the process. You're just like kind of showing up like the tourist almost, like you're not really getting the full, like I did my research and I know the favorite local spot. So I think that comes up for some people as well, is there's a little bit of this like, almost like ego hit for some I found. But I think the bigger one is the stakes are typically pretty high for people. And that feels like too big of a risk for a lot of people to take. So that's the thing I've seen. But like when we work with someone, we're always like, look, you're always in charge. You're just using the experts to get you what you want. Like same thing. If you have a CFO or someone who's advising you financially, it's like, you're still the one who's going to make the decision as the business owner. They're just going to tell you, this is what I see as a good idea or a bad idea. Like I'll tell someone, this is a really good deal, best flight you could get, versus this one's not a great deal, but if it's one that fits your schedule better and it costs 3 times as much, but like that's what's a priority, we'll still help you plan that. But it's not the one that's going to get you the most value for your points or the best value. So I think reminding people that they still ultimately are in charge is kind of the way out of that. But I think the letting go of control can be a big thing for people.
Let's go to another objection that I think is important. If a business owner has little ones and a $50,000 trip overseas to the most incredible spot in Lisbon, doesn't make sense. One of the reactions I hear to that is, we're waiting until. And I get it. My little man's 3. So for me to take him on a 8-hour plane ride to a destination that really isn't that significant to him, right? It's not special to him. Like we could walk anywhere and he's excited about what's there. I definitely get. But my sense is that that person is not saying, we're not going to do this big trip. We're going to do a small one. They just go, we're not going to do a big trip, end of sentence, period, and shut off all these other options.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear your take on what I would dub like small travel and
Yeah.
why that's important and can still be really meaningful.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think it's beautiful. Like it's important to not feel like there's a prescription of what you have to do. It's like, I like laying out options, and there's different flavors of travel too. There's adventure travel, like you're going to, go see a new destination and maybe go to Africa and like step into massive levels of unknown, go see wild animals, go into nature, that kind of thing. There's travel that's going to be more kind of for like deeper relationship connection. Maybe it's a getaway with the wife to an island. It's going to be something like that to just respark the relationship. There's travel that's about like education and learning, where you're going somewhere to just like study something, whether it's a conference or a mastermind, or you're going to learn history or going to see how a certain culture operates. And then there's travel that's like for more like experiences, concerts, big events, things that are like kind of these celebratory milestones. There's a couple other buckets that I have. So like you want to really think about what flavor is the right flavor for the season you're in, and how is it going to activate the most fulfillment, the most joy, the most connection, whatever's important for you in that season. And you start with that first. Because it's not like if you're looking for deeper connection with your spouse, maybe the World Cup game isn't like, and she's not into soccer, like maybe that's not the trip for this year. Maybe the retreat down to a resort in the Caribbean, where you guys are gonna, read a book together about the relationship and do some like things that can really connect you guys. Maybe that's actually what you need right now. And so I think that's a good place to start. But smaller travel is amazing. I mean, there's so many awesome places. If you're, I imagine most people listening to this are in the States, in Canada, that are, nonstop flights, same time zone. That's a big one for people, to not have to deal with jet lag for several hours, to be like, hey, we're going to go even down to like Colombia. If you're living in Florida or in Texas or Atlanta, like that's like a 4-hour flight for a lot of those destinations. And you're in a totally different world, but you didn't change time zones. It's super cheap. It's easy to get away to. So there's a lot of really awesome options right around here. And some of those are going to be really cheap too. So for domestic travel, like there was like 2023, 2024, I came off a year where I did a ton of international travel, like probably like 20 something countries within like 14 months. And I was like, I haven't seen as much of the US. I've seen more countries than states. So I was like, let me do a little more in a little more in our own backyard. So my fiance and I now, well, girlfriend then, one of the trips we did that I loved was in Big Sur, California. And there's an insane points property there called the Alila Ventana Big Sur. Had suites going for $4,000 a night. You're right on the coast. You have insane stars. One of the most beautiful places in the world I've ever been to. And it's just in Northern California. So you could fly into San Fran, drive 2 hours down the coast. We stayed there for 4 nights for her birthday. We had an incredible experience. That was like one of the highlights of the year. And it wasn't, going all the way to Bali. So I think finding that flavor and then optimizing for what's convenient for you in that season can also be a good move too.
That drive down from San Francisco was probably epic as well.
Insane.
On the Pacific Coastal Highway.
Yeah. Carmel Valley. Like you have like the whole thing. Big Sur's beautiful. You can go down the one of the most beautiful, like there's very few places in the world I've been to that I'd say are as equally beautiful or more beautiful than that. And sometimes we want these like far off lands to be the most exotic. And a lot of times they are, but sometimes it's like some of the places here in North America, I mean, even in Canada, can be just as insane, just not as far. So we don't value it as much.
Yeah. I was in Banff for a conference and oh my goodness, man.
Yeah.
Really, really easy to get to relatively, right? 2-hour flight to Alberta to Calgary and then take an hour and a half drive out, and stunning. I mean, I've never seen anything like that.
Dude, Banff is I think another one of those most beautiful places in the world. Lake Louise, you go there, there's a Fairmont property there.
That's where I was.
Right on the water. Yeah, that one just renovated their spa too. So now if you want to get like an insane like luxury getaway experience, you've got some really beautiful places up there. But yeah, to your point, like you nailed it. And a lot of people overlook that one because they're like, it's not, the Maldives. And it's like, well, just because it's close doesn't mean it isn't amazing.
Yeah. It's a good mindset shift. Here's another place to spend some time so someone listening can really walk away with a lot. Sometimes it doesn't make sense to use points.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't. And learning the difference took me a while.
Yeah.
Where I was initially driven by any points, any dollar, like I'm using it because I was still building a business.
Yep.
But as the business has gotten more mature and there is a lot of transaction happening and there are points building, there are times where it doesn't make sense to use points. I think we've covered a pretty good anchoring of take some small trips, really get your flavor down, anchor for those big trips in the future and use the points. Don't let them just linger. There's no point in having points in your balance sheet, so to say.
Yep.
But where should we like not use points? Where can we be intentional about knowing the difference in when to use cash, a business account, or a credit card?
Yeah. There's kind of like a little chart that I started to create, like points wealth levels, because at the first level, you're right. Like when I first got into this right out of college, the reason I got into it was because I had rich friends that were traveling. I was building another company in the travel space that was spending a lot of money on credit cards, and we were traveling a lot, and I was broke as hell and I wanted to travel. That was why. So points, what did it become? It became a necessary way for me to just even have any trips, right? Basically, I was getting free trips. So I was getting a couple free trips. From there, then it became about more trips because I could just go from like, wow, I got a couple trips to like, how many more can I get? And then it became about, okay, wait, can I take the same amount of trips and now upgrade the level? Right. And then at a certain level, there's people like a lot of our clients that are already paying for first class. They're already traveling as much as they want. They're already getting luxury experiences. So the points now become, it's not about just like saving the money. It's about, well, where can I reinvest the savings? Can I put it back into the experience? Can I put it back into the business? Can I put it back into that? Or it might become, who can I take these trips with? And then on another level, it's like the points become, how can I use these points as gifts, as incentives for my team? We have some clients that are sending, their sales reps on quarterly trips because they have so many points. So it depends on how much money you have, how much travel you have, and how many points you have on like what level you kind of fall into and where this is going to play the most value for you. So it's not a one size fits all, but there are definitely some black and white, like this is not a good deal. Don't use them. So let me just lay that out for you real quick. First off, there's two sides of the game. There's earning points and burning points. There's kind of a third bucket, which is like getting upgrades. But on the earning side, it's all about the cards you have. And on the burning side, it's how you use them. So when you use these points, I chunk into three different buckets. There's low quality redemptions that are non-travel based. So that's going to be cashing your points out, Amazon, and gift cards. We just point blank, unless you don't travel at all or don't have any plans to, like never use those. It's just you're just literally torching them on fire. You're getting about 10 to 25% of the value that you should be getting. Okay. So that's that. The second option is to go directly through the travel portal. So this is where you get generally 1 cent for each point. With some cards, there's a little bit of a lift on that, but that's a base value. So you have 1 million points, it's worth 10 grand. Okay. That's what I would call like still kind of poor value, not optimal value. It's the lazy way, it's the easier way, but it's definitely not optimal value. The more optimized value is where you transfer the points to the hotel and airline loyalty programs. And this is where you can get, like on average, we've redeemed 100 million points this year. We're getting close to 5x the value. Okay. So that same million points on average for us, instead of being worth 10 grand, is now worth 50 grand. So that's where it's like that allows you to ask, do I want to take another big trip? Do I want to take my babysitter because I have a young kid? And like, if I could bring grandma along, that means that actually this trip to Italy just got really fun because like I don't have to be in charge all the time. Those are the kind of questions you get to ask when you do that. So where do you not want to use your points? You don't want to cash them out. And you also, if you have personal trips that are big international trips and you have business travel, write off the business trips because it's a deduction on your business expense, and use the points for your personal vacations because those are the big trips where you're going to save the most money on international business class travel, and they're tax free. That's huge, right? And a quick like math on that: $50,000 trip to Europe. If you do it the traditional way, which is like, I'm a business owner, I'll take money out of the business distribution or whatever. Let's just say you're going to pay 25% on taxes. That means that you paid 50 grand for the trip and you paid 12,500 to Uncle Sam as a thank you for allowing you to take that money out of your company. If you use points, even if they were generated from business spend, you've covered the 50 grand. And so that $50,000 plus 12,500 that you were going to take out of the company, that could hire you another full-time assistant to free up your time to take more trips. So like, that's how you want to think about where that money can go and why you want to prioritize those personal trips. You definitely, unless you're in a season like you were when you were starting or me, where it's like the only way I'm getting in the room to this business event is to use points to get down there because like I have to, I'm not going to pay for it otherwise. Unless that's you, then you really just want to pay for your business travel as much as you can and then use them for the personal trips.
Man, yes, I love all of that. I'm so glad you shared. And I think for anybody tuned in, this is a good time to pay attention. We're kind of closing out the year soon, and it's a good time to build a strategy for what does 2026 look like. Eli, I think the most gratifying piece of my world is booking the travel, because things go fast and furious. I'm sure they are for you too, where if I book a trip for June of 2026, let's say World Cup, so excited about that. If I book it now, I book it and then I have to get back to my things, right? That trip doesn't really come around. I'm not the type to get super excited months beforehand and hold it. I book it. It's got to be reserved, but I can work around it from that point on. So it's a good time for business owners to get really dialed in. There's this tax-free element. There's savings. There's also spending the damn points to live really well. I want people to hear a little bit about your, I don't know, the emotional piece of like why travel's so important. Like if we have the opportunity, if we've built a business and have the opportunity to go see the world, why should we take it?
Yeah. I mean, this is where I think things like working with a really good coach who helps you see a bigger life vision, going to Tony Robbins types of events or other people that you're really into are so helpful, because most of us, once we get into business, it starts moving so fast, especially with AI and feeling like you're in this competitive market. Like your entire day from when you wake up to when you go to bed tends to be heavily focused on how much am I growing the business? Like at least for, I think, the majority of entrepreneurs I know. And so we miss the whole, like, how am I creating my life part? And so I think for all of us, if you go back to before you even thought about starting a business or before you even knew what entrepreneurship was, and you think about what were the dimensions of you at that point, there's probably a lot more parts of you than just being a hustling entrepreneur, right? Like, but what happens is we get in it and we become very one-dimensional, and it's like, this is my life now. And part of why travel is so good, it will open your, like, you go to Italy for a month, you realize, like, man, well, there's a lot of people who don't give a shit who I am, and they go at a different pace of life. They seem way more chill, way happier, way more relaxed. And maybe this like hustle and grind thing and being just consumed, like caught up in this kind of grind hustle culture isn't the most conducive to a long-term fulfilled, happy life, right? So that's like part of what it will do. It's just going to shift you and like show you different flavors of the world, give you more options of perspectives of how you want to live. You know, you go to Japan and you notice like the way that they master things, the way that they spend time and diligence. There's so many lessons you can take away from that after even like 10 days there, you're going to think about your own business, your own life differently. You go to Italy, again, different level of relaxation. You go to Brazil and you see how much like even the people that have nothing are just full of freaking life there. They're dancing, partying on the beach, like 3 p.m. on a Tuesday, kicking footballs, I guess, on the beach all day, just like full of vibrance in a country that's like one of the most corrupt, poor countries in terms of, first world countries. So there's a lot to take away there. But for me, the biggest thing comes down to, I believe like it's almost a spiritual act to be a student of the world and to share those moments of awe and wonder of like God's creation and being able to go explore it. That is like a high form of spiritual practice, and to share it with people you love, to have that like magnified with someone else. To me, that's just like those are the peak moments. Those are the memories. That's like what makes life really worth living. It's the juice for me. These are the moments where it's like, at the end of the day, I look back and you think of like a life really well lived. It's like, you're not going to really remember when you hit, 7 figures in the first business or whatever, or added an extra million. Like those things are going to become completely immaterial. I'm not going to remember what model of the iPhone I got. Like no freaking chance. I'm not going to remember this at all. I will 100% remember the time where right after I proposed to my fiance, we're in Switzerland and I'm trying to carry 3 bags to be the man for her. I trip over a sidewalk, fall over face first into like this in front of a crowd of Swiss people who are all laughing at me, and she's crying, laughing, and I'm like all pissed off. That's a funny ass experience that I'm never going to forget, right? And like I'm smiling thinking about it. So it's just, do you want your life to be about success or do you want it to be about fulfillment? And for me, this is like one of the most fulfilling things to do. So that's kind of how I've always thought about it. Not everyone aligns with that, and that's okay. But for the people that do, like this is, I think, a path that really gives richness to your life that you won't get just by chasing the next milestone.
Back when I had a job, he was 2 positions above me. He was a VP. And he came in like clockwork every quarter. He would come in on Wednesday and he would leave Friday afternoon. He'd be in the office at 6 a.m. I would get in early. He'd beat me in. He'd stay later than I did. And I was the hardest worker there. Made me look like I was doing nothing. he would sit in his little office and he would just go through all of our reports, all of our leases, everything. I was managing a property with 550 beds. Wednesday came around, he did his day. Thursday came around, he did his day. Friday came around and he did not show up. This is VP. Mm-hmm. So all of us in the office are like, where? We called him Super Frank. We're like, where is Super Frank? Like, this is weird. At like 10 a.m., he walked in the front door and I heard our leasing director, more or less, say like, she gasped as he walked in the door. And I immediately get up out of my chair, run around the corner because I couldn't see. And I see him. And half of his face was like sliding down. And he's like trying to talk, and you can kind of hear it, but it's a little bit distorted. And we learned that he's had a stroke. He's like, yeah, I had a stroke this morning. We were right next to Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore. He walked up to Hopkins after having a stroke and then came back to work. And I will never forget every puzzle piece in my life was now on the assessment table for, is this what I really want? Mm-hmm. And it prompted this moment where I had to really assess if I ever wanted his job. And definitively, I was like, hell no. Mm-hmm. This man just had a stroke. And the first thing he thought about was to come back in the office and look at leases. What are we talking about?
Yeah.
Why would I want that? And it takes incredible diligence and discipline to build your business where you still get these kinds of experience.
Totally.
It is difficult, right? You don't get it doesn't just fall in your lap when you run a company to go travel. You have to really be the enforcer of boundaries and disconnection and plan your trips or have somebody help you.
Yeah.
And I'm huge on how important this is to every point that you've made and my own stories of watching people work way too fucking hard for something they say they want. And then you end up short-lived. And underneath all of that, there's just this pull I have on a regular basis to go live because we just don't know, right? Could be a stroke, could be a car accident. You just don't know. And every moment, I can almost categorize the growth of my business by looking at how good my travel was. And it's something I'm really proud of because every time the business levels up, my travel levels up. And that doesn't mean I stay at these epic spots. It just means I travel more. And what I have found is that as part of my formula, if I work, travel, I'm better at work when I travel. And if for some reason, and it's happened in the last couple of years, where it's been like work. Oh man, I would normally travel now. Work. Oh shit, I missed it. The window's gone. Work. Dude, I become a shit leader. I become a very agitated, short-tempered, a little bit disconnective, and certainly less creative leader. And I think travel is the antidote. It's like the medicine for entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Get a new environment, feel the unknown, find a sense of adventure, test yourself a little bit, maybe find a culture that has different ways of connecting, and then go see products that you would never see before. And it's just to me, it's one of the formulas for what makes me creative and helpful to people. And I can't be a guy that's saying, hey, have a big vision if I don't have my own.
Right.
So this points engine becomes really valuable because we don't have to use our dollars, right? We can travel differently.
Yep.
Also, no other country in the world has this kind of program. I used to get comments from Canadians and
all the time, man. I feel so bad. Yeah.
They're like, can I do this? And I'm like, look, man, I'm sorry. It's weird to say, but your government does not want consumers having access to credit, which in some ways is very helpful for the average consumer who can get swallowed up in credit card debt. But for business owners, this is a huge opportunity to take advantage of American lending and leverage it into travel. You have any comments on that before we shift out?
Yeah. I mean, it's there's so many. Yeah. Is the America perfect? Hell no. But especially if you travel, holy shit, do we have some amazing systems, especially if you're someone who's I want to start a business. The level, go hang out with entrepreneurs from France, right? I just did this when I was hosted a mastermind in Marbella. One of the guys from France, he was telling me about it. He's talking about the taxes, talking about how hard it is to get lending or borrowing. telling me how hard it is to even just like people are so skeptical to buy something from you. And if you want to fire someone, you have to like pay them for a year, like full-time salary with all the benefit. I'm like, how could you even hire someone if that's the risk you have to take? He's like, it's horrible, dude. I'm like, God damn, we have it good here. So, and on top, I mean, the fact that you're going to take, like when I think about this, like it happened the other day, we're flying to Hawaii and we're staying at a hotel for free, 5-star hotel, flying first class. And I'm just looking at I've done this hundreds of times. I've saved over $500,000 for myself in the last like several years on this stuff. I'm looking at my fiance and I'm like, this is absurd. This trip was funded by points that I earned from paid ads that helped me get clients. I'm like, so the more I grow my business, the more I get to travel. I actually call that the freedom flywheel. So it's when the more you grow your business, the more points you get. The more points you get, the more trips you can take. The more trips you can take, guess what? You come back and you want to grow your business more. So now you're thinking, how do I grow my business in a way that's going to scale it and spend more money? Strategically, obviously, so you can not just increase expenses, but create more freedom for me to take more trips and have a better life and a better business. And I'm like, what a beautiful feedback loop. Whereas for most people, it's the opposite, right? It's like vacations are time away, they're expensive. So this whole thing, it's a permission slip for you to have the experiences you want. That's kind of the idea. And yeah, I think you nailed it with all that. And one of the things actually you touched on too, if people are unsure of like, they can't seem to get themselves wrapped around it. One of the books I'd really recommend reading is The 5 Regrets of the Dying. Have you read that book?
I have. Great book.
One of the two of the top 5 are, I wish I hadn't worked so hard. And these aren't also, by the way, these aren't entrepreneurs who are insane like us, right? These are like normal people. Wish I hadn't worked so hard. And I wish I had given myself more permission to enjoy my life. Basically, I probably not verbatim exactly what it is, but it's pretty on point. And so you think about using like future regrets as your anti-North Star is really helpful, because you probably can know where you don't want to end up. You probably don't want to end up as the person who has a mountain of money and a mountain of regret, right? That's probably not where you want to be. So if you're like, well, how do I avoid that? Okay, I make sure to prioritize the experiences now that are easy to put off, because I know that if I don't do them now, I'm going to look back in 15 years when my health has declined, my kids are out of high school, they're in college, they don't want to hang out with me, and the window's gone. That's a pretty sure path to more regret. So that's also just part of how I think, living vision, right? That you got to have that part of your vision about what you want and what you don't want.
Yeah. Yeah. Part of our philosophy and part of the reason living is in the front of it is that a vision is not helpful if you don't live in it. If you're not doing it, if you're like, yeah, in 7 years, I'll travel, by that point, you don't know. So some of the stories you referenced, but also, why the hell are we waiting? What's the point? Man, Eli, this is so helpful. I love the flywheel. I think that's a really important piece of this. Grow your business, grow your travel. Let's make them synergistic.
Mm-hmm.
I love the idea of experiential wealth. I think that's really valuable for those of us that live in creative businesses or are the creative lead of our business as well. And man, tactically, we got some good options for how to book out some travel. You've got a business. I want to take maybe 2 or 3 minutes and hear specifically about what the business does so that someone can learn about it here and reach out. How does it work?
Yeah. I'd love to share about that. And also there's one thing, I can give people a little bit of a framework. I call it the experiential millionaire framework. We can come back to that afterwards as well. It's like a practical way to, as a business owner, to create travel where there's like a template almost. So we can come back to that. But yeah, so our company is called Freedom Travel. Think of us as a luxury travel and points concierge designed to make it super easy for business owners to take the points they already have and the money they're already spending and turn them into their most extraordinary dream trips with minimal money out of pocket or time spent planning. Okay, so there's usually a couple barriers between people and their dream trips. One barrier is the emotional mental hangups, which we kind of hammered on pretty heavy here. The next is the time for planning and like, I don't know what to do. And then the third is the cost. So we try to eliminate all of those so you can have more of the experiences you want with the people you want. And again, especially for those that have kids, I believe like you owe it to the kids to create these memories. This is the stuff that they're going to be talking about, 20 years down the line when they're thinking about what kind of mom or dad you were. So it's a really beautiful thing there. But yeah, so we have concierge done for you services. So we'll plan the big trips. People either come to us with one of two things. They have a big trip they already want and we'll help them plan that. Or even a little bit better is they have a couple different bucket list experiences that are on their heart and they have the points and they're like, look, here's 3 or 4 dates where I could go somewhere. I want your team to give me the best experience as possible. Here's why that's important, because points don't work like cash when you book trips. So one of the most important things, if people ask me, like, what are some of the biggest mistakes people make? Well, the first one is they have the wrong cards and they're earning the wrong points. And then they come to us too late and we're like, hey, you needed to come to us 6 months ago because you have a million Delta miles and like we need to have Amex points or Chase points instead. So that's the first one. The second one is that they need to have a little bit of flexibility, not necessarily like months. Like if you want to go to Europe, or let's go say Italy with your family. I'm not saying if you want to go in June when the kids are out of school, now you have to go in February when they're in the middle of school. That's not what I'm saying. But a few days, front or back end of your big trips, and the major airport you fly out of will make all the difference. You're out in Scottsdale, Phoenix is your hub. If you want to go to Italy, I'm talking about, you want to go June 5th. Well, if we fly June 7th and we fly the long haul flight out of Dallas or Chicago or Houston or New York and do the lay flat business class flight from there, and you have a 2 days of flexibility and you're okay flying out of a major hub, you take a short hop to get there. That's where you're going to get that 5x value out of the points and save tens of thousands of dollars. If you say I need to go direct nonstop Phoenix to Rome, which I don't even think there is a flight there, on June 5th, 4 people business class on the 8 p.m. flight, and I want a good deal, I'm going to tell you good luck. Don't hire us. Don't even try to use your points, right? So that's why also, like, when do you want to use your points? There's a threshold. Those bigger opportunities are when it makes sense to be flexible by a day or two because you're going to save 50,000. You're going from Phoenix to Miami for a conference, just book the flight, So that's a little bit about what we do. So we do card plans for people where we optimize all their cards, just tell them exactly what lineup of cards they need. The simplest way to do it, keeping their credit intact. And then we help plan the trips and give them the best value out of their points and ultimately create the best first class experiences, best hotels, all that stuff. And we have a team of like concierge travel advisors as well. So people that want dinners, tours, activities, you're going to Japan or Vietnam, somewhere you're not familiar with, you want like an expert who's been there, done that, knows the ins and outs, can give you a really safe, comfortable, luxurious experience. We've got that side down too for those that want that piece.
Okay. So someone listening is like, okay, clearly I need to be doing this. I need to get started. I need help. Where can they find you? Because Eli, you got some good stuff going on.
Yeah. So first place, if you're just like, I want to engage more, Instagram's the best, which is just Eli Travel Guy. So kind of like Bill Nye the Science Guy, but for travel, Eli Travel Guy. The next place, if you want to book a call with our team to learn about the concierge service and see if it makes sense, that's going to be for someone, by the way, spending roughly over $20,000 a month between personal and business cards. They have at least one big international trip in the next 12 months that they want to take with 2, 3, 4, 5 people and a few domestic trips. If that's you, then, and you don't want to spend a ton of time and you want the value, that's a great fit for you. freedomtravelsystems.com. There's just going to be a book a call button there. And then for those that are like, hey, I would love to learn how to put payroll on a credit card and earn points from that, just a little starter thing. I have a PDF that's normally $27. Anyone watching this will get that for free. So you can go to freedomtravelsystems.com/payroll. And then we'll put in the code Living Vision and you'll get that for free as well. And that's basically how do you take your payroll and put that on a card, because it's a huge opportunity for a lot of people. And most people don't know how to do it. So it'll give you the steps on how to do that. And that can be a fast way to earn even more points as well. So 3 different options depending on what you need. And you can check me out in any of those places.
So you got to give him a follow. I love watching your content, man. It's great. I appreciate anybody that's getting around the world, because you also have to personally manage your stuff, not just like your gear, but you have to manage your schedule, your routines. Having a travel lifestyle comes with its own set of personal discipline that I think I can respect a lot.
Totally.
Just knowing that you're traveling so much.
Yep.
But I recommend you get that guide, get payroll on. You can make all of your next trips in 2026 covered just because you make that swing transition. So check out what Eli's offering and give him a follow. This is going to be a big year for you. I'm excited to see some of you take action on that. Eli, if people reach out, treat them well. I know you will.
Of course.
I'm going to push them to do the travel, and then you can help them make the travel booking, which I think is a powerful combo.
Amen.
Man, I appreciate you being here. This is really helpful for anybody that's got questions. They can reach out, send me a note. Let me know what you learned today. If you are hesitating to book travel, this might be your nudge. There's a traveler in all of us, I believe. You might not be the type to do touristy stuff, or maybe you don't like staycations, but there's something in travel for all of us. I love when people, Eli, say, I really valued travel. And my first comment back is like, I really doubt it. I really doubt that you love travel. Not many people are like, yeah, I can't wait to be in the plane. But there is something magical when you figure out what is on the other side of travel that you love, because then you can be intentional about finding it.
Amen. Yeah, Aaron, would it be cool if I share that framework real quick before we wrap for people?
Absolutely. Let's go.
Yeah. Okay. So the currency here that we're optimizing for when we talk about this is experiential wealth. It's the stories, the memories, the experiences that you live that you get to talk about for a lifetime. So how do you do this in a practical way? So this is what I call becoming an experiential millionaire. Okay. So this is where, as an entrepreneur, this is like your recommended template. Once a quarter, you take a trip, ideally 5 up to 10 days per quarter, could be as low as 3. But this is a trip. It could be domestic, could be a few hours, sometimes to Europe even. But these are like your smaller, we'll call them mini vacations. Okay. These are resets. They're milestones. They're places to give you that fresh clarity where your best ideas come from. Spend time with the people that matter the most. They don't have to be the insane month-long trip to Japan, but you want one of these per quarter. And you also can cast your new vision, create a chunk one of the days on the trip to be like, hey, I'm going deep on vision work today. And I'm going to do that on day 5 when I'm fully rested and my nervous system's relaxed. Okay. So once a quarter, you take a trip. If you use points, that should save you between 10 to 15K if you have a family or a few people going for that trip. Then once a year, you take your big bucket list experience. This could be your month-long Japan trip. This could be your 3-week African safari, 2.5 to 3 weeks in Italy or Greece. You take that time fully off if you can. Like that's what we're pushing for. And this is where you test the health of the business. You see how well it runs without you. Use it as a forcing function. You go check off a bucket list experience. This should save you 40 to 50 grand if you use points. So 4 trips at 15K is $60,000 saved. That's the one quarterly trip. The one annual trip at 40 to 50K is another 40,000 saved. So now you've saved $100,000 a year. You do that for the next decade of your entrepreneurial career. That's 48 mini vacations and 10 insane bucket list experiences and $1 million saved. If you do that, you're going to look back at the end of this decade. If you build an amazing business, you're going to be like, I really lived along the way too. It's a pretty regret-proof formula for you to have those experiences, the connection with people you love, all that stuff. So if you want a little template to follow, that's the experiential millionaire framework, and you can plug that into the system and start planning the trips.
Well, I got some homework to do. I'm going to come up with my bucket list of 10. Dude, I love that framework. $1 million worth of travel, also not paid for.
Exactly.
And incredible memories. The kind of memories that you cannot get back, right? You can't pay to have them later. You can't undo. You can't control Z it. So, Eli, dude, this is amazing, man. I'm so excited.
Appreciate you having me on. I think this is you asked really good questions. And for those listening, like there's a lot of points people out there, and I could go as tactical as we want to go, but I think this conversation is the more important one, especially for business owners. So I think the way we frame this up and the way you ask the questions is amazing for anyone listening. So thank you for having me on.
This was great. You got some homework to do. You got to plan out your quarterlies, your yearly big bucket trips. You got to reach out to Eli, get his guide on getting your payroll on credit cards. And then you probably got to reach out to his concierge service and get him to help you do it. Cause I know you're busy. I get it. I'm busy too. Eli, thank you so much for being here. If you love this episode, be sure to subscribe, follow, and like. If you have a moment, leave me a review. Would love that. And most importantly, give Eli a follow. Got some big things in the work for you. Thanks for being here. See you on the next episode.